being here this evening once more. Thank you for continuing to show up on behalf of the people of Palestine. Recent news may have given some people a reason to lay their efforts to rest, or may have led us to believe that the worst of this genocide is behind us. I am pained to say that it is not, and here is why. I am sure that by now most of you are aware that an ambitious deal has been struck by the President of the United States and Netanyahu regarding a long-term solution for the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. This plan has been set in motion at the start of this month, implementing the following steps. A ceasefire from Israel, which they have already broken numerous times since the official start of it, killing both families and journalists alike, such as Saleh al-Jafarawi. The release of the last of the Israeli hostages and their bodies held by Hamas in exchange for thousands of Palestinian hostages held by Israel, of which some have been held captive in barbaric imprisonment for decades, as opposed to the hostages Hamas took on October 7th. Followed by the retreat of most of the IOF's forces from the Gaza Strip, but not completely withdrawn. If anything, the area free from IOF presence will end up being even smaller than before October 7th. The return of Palestinian civilians to their homes, or what is left of their homes and livelihoods after 2 years of destructive bombardments. The demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, in particular the forces of armed Palestinian resistance like Hamas, meaning that the Palestinian people in Gaza would have no means of fighting back when the mass killing would start again from Israel. The entering of aid trucks and supplies into the Gaza Strip, which still hasn't happened so far, with dire consequences every day. It keeps being delayed. In fact, you wonder why the fuck, pardon my language, was then one of the first steps in this deal. The transition of power in Gaza to a government of Palestinian technocrats overseen by an international body of supervision, meaning that ultimately the people of Palestine still won't have full autonomy in who rules and governs their own land, nor is it clear how long this will be the status quo. And in the end, this all amounts to a conditional pathway towards acceptance of Palestinian self-determination and recognition of Palestinian statehood. So Palestine can exist in due time, under conditions. Great, fantastic, all we need to hear, nothing to change about that. Numerous powerful Western governments, as well as several Arabic states, have pledged their support to this plan made by Trump. And Hamas has so far agreed to cease any fighting, as well as to the release of their prisoners and their remains. The mainstream media is already stocked up with photos and tearful reunions of families with hostage members. By the way, the majority of this footage is from Israeli families, because of course it doesn't mean the same for prisoners of Palestinian people. But where in God's name has been the voice of the Palestinian population in all this? How can this be rightfully about their independence, freedom and self-determination if they don't have any say on the conditions and execution of this plan? The fact that the Palestinian Authority has agreed on this plan does not mean it is truly in the best interest of the Palestinian people long term. And how can Hamas be expected to completely lay down all of their arms, which they haven't agreed to do so far, if it would mean that Israel would wipe out armed Palestinian resistance completely once they feel like doing so, with impunity? The entry of aid into the Strip being conditional on this disarmament is a cruel tactic to leave the Palestinian people completely without defense. The Zionist occupation also seems intent on keeping access in and out of the Gaza Strip limited, because they claim the hostages and bodies haven't been returned exactly in the way agreed, if those claims are even fully true. On top of it all, this international body of oversight is supposedly going to be led by none other than former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, whose disastrous actions and decisions...
Shame!
Shame indeed. Whose disastrous actions and decisions during the Iraq War came at the cost of so many unnecessary deaths. A controversial leader of one of the biggest colonial empires in history is now going to dictate how Palestine tries to rebuild and flourish?
Shame!
Ridiculous. All the steps on which this deal is built amount to a severely flawed and ultimately futile vanity project of Trump to regain control of what he views as a pesky annoyance in the Middle East and save the already incredibly damaged reputation of the United States on an international level by trying to grab all the credit for resolving the conflict. It does not put an end to the genocide, it does not put an end to the occupation, and it certainly will not put an end to the Palestinian plight. The reason why we continue to be here every week, to achieve complete Palestinian freedom, peace, safety, and dignity. They are in the end still aiming and clamoring for a two-state solution, which we all know is not true justice and will not amount to lasting peace or freedom for the people of Palestine. No peace on stolen land! On that note of the Gaza Strip, I would like to address the cruelty and horrific violence that is simultaneously happening in the West Bank against the Palestinian population living there, which doesn't seem to get nearly as much attention, nor a comprehensive plan to move forward to a sustainable future for Palestinians, as Gaza does. Every month, perhaps as much as every week, more Palestinians are bullied, abused, sometimes murdered, and forced from their homes by violent, racist colonists from Israel, seeking to extend their Lebensraum as the chosen people into the West Bank. These are terms that have been used by Adolf Hitler himself to justify occupation of European countries during WW2, as well as the expulsion of large swaths of native populations, in particular Jewish people, Roma and Sinti, in horrific genocide. These colonists, like Staun's Zionist Daniela Weiss, believe wholeheartedly and without question in the justification of their violent methods and their heinous crimes, citing God-given permission to take whatever they want from the Palestinian people as their own, as captured in interviews from documentaries like Settlers and No Other Land. Please give both of them a watch if you can, as well as the Dutch anti-horror documentary Het Geweten van Israël. They are all exceptional. Local police and the IOF won't lift a finger to stop these cruelties and will even assist the settlers most of the time to ban Palestinian families out of their homes before they are being bulldozed and erased from the face of the earth. The current mass murder in Gaza may have amplified necessary attention towards the West Bank as well, but nowhere near the amount needed to put an end to these settler cruelties and push for genuine reforms and policy change by the international community. These two regions of Palestine have been separated, shrunk bit by bit, and abused and tortured by Israel for decades. And liberation, self-determination of the West Bank and its Palestinian inhabitants is just as vital as it is for Gaza. As long as colonialism has a place in the West Bank, the world can never speak of it as a region defined by justice or peace. So remember this. To not just put all eyes on Gaza, but on the West Bank as well. To close it off, before we will chant together again, I would like to give you some words that relate to the future of our own country, which will be decided this month, and by extent, the future of Palestine. These are fictional words from an acclaimed space opera show on TV, uttered by a pacifist politician who tried to preserve democracy in a truly evil fascist system for as long as she could. This fascist system was also openly guilty of genocide, trying to reframe it as justified oppression against terrorists and violent instigators. In the end, her words could not stop the complete dismantling of what little remained of democracy, and she was forced to join armed resistance, which eventually led to the liberation of all the people she once represented. I hope these words will inspire some of you to vote the right way, to vote for parties that oppose genocide, oppose fascism, and support the freedom, dignity, and future for all Palestinian people, to avoid parties that are based on lies, extremist propaganda, xenophobia, racism, and unrightful blame towards minorities and peaceful activists like ourselves. Here they are, and in case you don't recognize any names I mentioned, don't worry, it's about the words behind those names. Fellow senators, friends, colleagues, allies, adversaries. I stand before you this morning with a heavy heart. I've spent my life in this chamber. I came here as a child. And as I look around now, I realize that I have almost no memories that predate my arrival, and few bonds of affection that cleave so tightly. Through these many years, I believe I have served my constituents honorably and upheld our code of conduct. This chamber is a cauldron of opinions, and we've certainly all had our patience and tempers tested in pursuit of our ideals. Disagree as we might, I am hopeful that those of you who know me will vouch for my credibility in the days to come. I stand this morning with a difficult message. I believe we are in crisis. The distance between what is said and what is known to be true has become an abyss. Of all the things at risk, the loss of an objective reality is perhaps the most dangerous. The death of truth is the ultimate victory of evil. When truth leaves us, when we let it slip away, when it is ripped from our hands, we become vulnerable to the appetite of whatever monster screams the loudest. This chamber's hold on the truth was finally lost on the Gorman Plaza. What took place yesterday, what happened yesterday on Gorman, was unprovoked genocide. Yes, genocide. And that truth has been exiled from this chamber. And the monster screaming the loudest, the monster we've helped create, the monster who will come for us all soon enough, is Emperor Palpatine. Thank you.